A chicken ran for its life. Feathers flew everywhere, scattering like tiny white flags of surrender in the dusty air. The scene was chaotic, a whirlwind of motion and noise. Rocket, a young boy with big, scared eyes, watched it zip through the crazy maze of Cidade de Deus. His heart pounded in his chest as he peered through the narrow alleys, his small frame hidden behind a makeshift wall. The slum was a labyrinth, a place where danger lurked around every corner. The favela, a slum in Brazil, was alive, but in a dangerous, unpredictable way. Gangs were in charge, their presence felt in every shadow, every whispered conversation. The streets were a tangled web of narrow paths and makeshift homes, a chaotic blend of life and survival. Everyone felt their presence like a constant threat. The air was thick with tension and people moved with a wary caution, always looking over their shoulders. The gangs ruled with an iron fist, their influence seeping into every aspect of life in the favela. Rocket wasn't part of that world, not yet. He stood on the fringes, observing from the shadows, a silent witness to the violence and chaos that surrounded him. He was different, a dreamer in a place where dreams were often crushed. He wanted a different life, a life away from the violence everywhere. He dreamed of a world beyond the slum, a place where he could be free from the constant fear and danger. His eyes often drifted to the horizon, filled with a longing for something better. His escape was his camera, it was his window to a different world, a tool that allowed him to capture moments of beauty amidst the chaos. Through the lens, he could see things differently, find a sense of peace in the midst of turmoil. It let him see the world from a safe spot to freeze good moments in all the chaos. His photos were a testament to his resilience, snapshots of happiness in a place where joy was a rare commodity. They were his way of holding on to hope, but the chicken, running for its life, reminded him of the danger everywhere. It was a stark reminder of the reality he lived in, a world where survival was a daily struggle. The sight of the terrified bird brought him back to the harshness of his surroundings. Older boys, part of the Runts gang, chased the chicken. They were relentless, their laughter echoing through the narrow streets. The chase was a game to them, a cruel sport that highlighted the brutality of their world. Their laughter echoed through the narrow streets, a scary soundtrack to the chase. Rocket's heart pounded. He knew the Runts, he knew their reputation, their capacity for violence. The sound of their laughter sent chills down his spine. He knew they were violent, they were just kids, but their eyes held a hardness that spoke of a life lived on the edge. In Cidade de Deus, childhood was a fleeting thing, quickly replaced by the harsh realities of survival. They were just kids, but in Cidade de Deus, being a kid was a luxury. The innocence of youth was a rare and precious thing, often lost too soon. The children of the favela grew up fast, hardened by the world around them. The line between good and bad was blurry, easy to cross. In a place where survival often meant making tough choices, the boundaries of morality were often blurred. Rocket stood on that line, teetering between the world he knew and the world he dreamed of. The story of Cidade de Deus, like the chicken's run, was about survival. It was a place where every day was a struggle, where the weak were preyed upon, and only the strong could hope to thrive. The chicken's frantic dash through the streets mirrored the lives of the residents, always on the run, always looking over their shoulders. Built in the 1960s for people to live, it was supposed to be a good thing, a fresh start. The government had promised a new beginning, a place where families could grow and prosper. Rows of new buildings stood tall, a symbol of hope and progress. But the reality was far from the dream. The infrastructure quickly deteriorated, and the promises of a better life faded away. Instead, it became a place of poverty and crime, forgotten by everyone else. The buildings crumbled and the streets became dangerous. Graffiti-covered walls told stories of despair and rebellion. The residents were left to fend for themselves, with little support from the outside world. It was a breeding ground for crime, a place where the law of the jungle prevailed. In the 1960s, the Tender Trio ran the favela. They were more than just a gang. They were a force to be reckoned with. Their presence was felt in every corner of the neighborhood. They controlled the streets, and their influence was undeniable. They were the kings of their domain, ruling with an iron fist. They were famous, their names whispered, both feared and respected. People spoke of them in hushed tones, afraid of attracting their attention. Their reputation was built on a foundation of fear and admiration. They were legends in their own time, their stories passed down from one generation to the next. Their stories were legendary, tales of robberies and violence. They were known for their daring heists and brutal enforcement of their rules. Each robbery was meticulously planned and their violent altercations were swift and ruthless. They left a trail of chaos in their wake, a testament to their power and audacity. There was Clipper, the leader, known for being quick and clever. He was the brains behind their operations, always one step ahead of the law. His sharp eyes missed nothing, and his quick thinking got them out of many tight spots. He was a natural leader, commanding respect and loyalty from his followers. Shaggy, the strong one, who scared people just by looking at them. His imposing presence was enough to make anyone think twice about crossing him. He was the muscle of the group, always ready to use his strength to enforce their will. His stern expression and intimidating demeanor made him a figure of fear in the neighborhood. And Goose, the unpredictable one, always dangerous. His wild eyes and erratic behavior made him the most feared of the trio. He was a loose cannon, capable of anything at any moment. His unpredictability kept everyone on edge, never knowing what he might do next. He was the embodiment of chaos, a constant threat to anyone who crossed his path. The trio's rule was scary and exciting. Their reign brought a mix of fear and thrill to the streets. People were terrified of their power, but there was also a sense of excitement in the air. Their actions were unpredictable, and their presence electrified the neighborhood. It was a time of tension and anticipation, with everyone waiting to see what they would do next. They were like the opposite of Robin Hood, stealing from the rich and keeping it all. Their heists targeted the wealthy, but there was no redistribution of wealth. They kept their spoils, using them to fund their operations and maintain their power. Their actions were driven by greed and a desire for control, not by any sense of justice or charity. They showed how desperate people were, how far they'd go. The Tender Trio's reign was a reflection of the desperation that permeated Cidade de Deus. People were willing to go to great lengths to survive, to find a way out of their dire circumstances. The trio's actions were extreme, but they were born out of the same desperation that drove everyone else. Their story was a testament to the lengths people would go to in order to survive in a harsh and unforgiving world. A young boy named Lil Dice admired the trio. They were the kings of the streets, the ones everyone feared and respected. To Lil Dice, they were everything he aspired to be. He dreamed of joining them and having their power. Every day he watched them, learning their moves, their strategies, and their ruthlessness. He knew that one day he would be one of them, or even surpass them. He was smart, tricky, and mean, qualities that would help him later. Lil Dice was not just another street kid. He had a mind that was always scheming, always looking for the next opportunity to climb the ladder of power. The motel robbery changed everything. It was a pivotal moment, a test of his cunning and ruthlessness. The trio, along with Lil Dice, planned to rob a motel where rich tourists stayed. It was supposed to be their biggest job, a heist that would cement their dominance. The trio and Lil Dice planned to rob a motel where rich tourists stayed. They meticulously planned every detail, ensuring that nothing could go wrong. But in the world of crime, nothing is ever certain. It was supposed to be their biggest job, but things went wrong. It became a bloodbath. The carefully laid plans fell apart, and chaos ensued. In the midst of the violence, Lil Dice saw a chance. Lil Dice saw a chance. Amidst the confusion and bloodshed, he realized that this was his moment to seize power. He betrayed the trio, shooting them without hesitation. He betrayed the trio, shooting them. It was a smart but evil move, a grab for power that changed Cidade de Deus forever. The boy who once admired the trio had now become their executioner. It was a smart but evil move, a grab for power that changed Cidade de Deus. The streets that once echoed with the trio's name now whispered the name of Lil Dice, who would soon be known as Lil Zay. The boy who admired the trio killed them. With the trio gone, Lil Dice, now called Lil Z, took control. He was no longer the boy who looked up to others, he was the one others looked up to, or feared. With the trio gone, Lil Dice, now called Lil Z, took control. He was younger, meaner, and more ambitious. His reign would be marked by even greater violence and ruthlessness. He was younger, meaner, and more ambitious. Under his rule, the streets of Cidade de Deus would become even more dangerous. The power vacuum left by the trio's demise was quickly filled by Lil Zay's brutal tactics. Under him, Cidade de Deus would get even worse. The once hopeful streets now ran red with blood, and fear became the currency of the day. Lil Z's ascent to power was complete, and the city would never be the same again. While Lil Z rose to power, Rocket found comfort in photography. He saw the world differently, finding beauty amidst the ugliness. His camera protected him from the violence. He found kids playing a dangerous game pretending to be gangsters. They called themselves the Runts, copying the older, dangerous gangs. One boy, Benny, would later become important in Lil Z's world. Rocket liked their innocence, how naive they were. He photographed them, their games, their laughter, their dreams. He saw himself in them, wanting a different life, a life outside Cidade de Deus. A king's ransom, Lil Z's drug empire and fragile peace. Lil Z changed Cidade de Deus. He started a drug business, selling cocaine everywhere. Money came in, creating a weird kind of wealth in a short peace. The violence continued, but it was more organized, more planned. Benny, now older and loyal to Lil Z, became his right-hand man. They ruled with fear, but underneath, trouble was brewing. Rocket, always watching, documented this new time. He captured the appeal of quick money, the power cocaine had. His photos showed a society about to fall apart. The price of power, Benny's demise and the cycle of violence. The short piece ended when Benny died. He was shot in the street, a victim of the violence he helped create. Lil Z was heartbroken and angry. He wanted revenge on Knockout Ned, a rival gang leader thought to have killed Benny. Lil Z started a war against Ned's gang. The streets filled with blood as more people died. Rocket was caught in the middle, his camera showing the heart of the conflict. He showed the fear in innocent people's eyes, the sadness of mothers who lost their sons, and how uncaring people had become. City of War, Lil Zay and Carrot's battle for supremacy. The fight between Lil Zay and Knockout Ned got bigger, pulling in other gangs and turning Cidade de Deus into a war zone. A new gangster, Carrot, appeared. He was young and ambitious, and he saw a chance to take over. Carrot was different. He was smarter, meaner, and scarier than Lil Z. He was cold and brutal, wanting all the power. The favela became a battlefield where life was cheap. Rocket, wanting to show the truth but also stay safe, kept taking pictures. His photos showed terrible violence, a community destroyed by hate and greed. A lens on reality, Rocket's dilemma and the weight of truth. A journalist from outside the favela saw Rocket's powerful photos. He saw how they showed a forgotten world. He offered Rocket a chance to escape, to tell his story. But Rocket was unsure. He wanted a life without violence, away from Cidade de Deus. But he felt responsible for his community, the people in his photos. The journalist promised he could stay anonymous, start over. But could Rocket really leave his past? Could he abandon the people and place that made him who he was? A new dawn, a new terror. The cycle continues. Lil Z was killed by the police. His death, like his life, showed the never-ending violence of Cidade de Deus. But the violence didn't stop. It just changed. Rocket chose to stay quiet. He gave the journalist his photos but didn't say who he was. He couldn't betray his community, even if it meant losing his chance for a better life. The Runts, once kids playing gangsters, were now toughened by the favela's war. They had seen the appeal of power, the excitement of violence. They were ready to take over in Cidade de Deus, to continue the cycle of crime and bloodshed.